I think the most important megatrend for our business is the increasing economic performance in the emerging markets. As I said before, titanium dioxide is an essential element in paint and plastic. So therefore, paint and plastic is an essential element into construction and into other activities in economies. And as they grow in terms of economic development, as more and more people become wealthier, if you will, or at least enter into a more wealthy state than they have been historically, the use of paint and plastic increases significantly. People get bigger flats, bigger apartments or homes. They get a car or they get a second car. And this expansion of the wealth effect, if you will be very important for the growth of our business, which is why I think we will grow faster than global GDP, because we'll focus more on these emerging markets that are growing much faster. So I think that's an important, productive, positive element for us. We think there are new uses for our pigment, and we're exploring with some customers the actual execution on that idea, or at least the testing of those ideas. In particular, our product goes into white paint and white plastic, and it has certain characteristics that make those products desirable from the consumer's point of view. But those same characteristics could be applied in other ways and have environmental benefits, for example. So we could contribute to putting our product into exterior building coating, paint or some sort of coating on a building or even on streets. And the reaction with the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would be such that the carbon dioxide would be eliminated and other positive elements would be introduced into the environment. So those sorts of applications are very different than what we do now, but we're looking at them. We also think that as titanium metal becomes more and more useful, right now it's relatively limited in supply, it's relatively expensive, but it's extremely strong and it's extremely light, and it has other desirable characteristics for objects that are going to be in the outside environment. So airplanes, cars, to the extent that we can enhance the production of the material that goes into titanium metal, that's also a new market for us, and we're working on that as well. I believe we operate in a global market, and so competitors from other parts of the world can become, and are in fact, have been for the last year or two, and will become, I think will be increasingly a factor for performance in our market. We see the global market becoming more competitive over the next 5 years. We think significant entrants from other parts of the world that are not now significant or as meaningful will become significant, and therefore we have to have a cost structure that meets their forecast cost structure. I think sustainability is a much more important factor and is becoming even more important now in the future than it is now. And if you fail to meet a sort of broadly defined sustainability performance level, I think companies will suffer. That's not only environmental, but it's people, it's your community, it's your customers. I think sustainability will become a very broad term, covering a set of behaviors that are deemed by society generally to be positive and kind of a minimum threshold of performance to be engaged in that community, and we're going to have to achieve it. And there won't be any discretion about that. It's going to be table stakes for doing business globally. So we're very committed to moving our capabilities in that area forward. But obviously, if we fail to achieve that, that would be a threat. China has a different history with respect to partnerships and intellectual property and some of the other features that go along with cooperative relationships. But I think that as some of their leading companies become more sophisticated, more international, that the opportunities to form constructive relationships will increase in both sort of the nature of them and also the number of relationships that one can have. But one has to be careful. The primary barrier that one, I think generally one encounters, and that we in particular have encountered, because we are the product of a merger, several mergers actually, is culture, is aligning the culture of your employees so that they are focused on the strategic goals of one Tronox, one company. Somebody once said, and I don't know who expressed this, but I agree with it. Culture eats strategy for lunch every day. And that's true. If your culture isn't aligned with your strategic objectives, the culture will prevail and your strategic objectives will not be met. So I think that's the single biggest issue that we have. We work on it every day. We have a pretty significant commitment to communicating an aligned set of values. So it's important in this culture transformation process that one identifies those kind of leaders down at the operating levels, and that they become your advocate. They become your megaphone for cultural change, because I think it's very difficult to achieve it if you don't find them, or if they don't identify themselves. Many of them are the kind of people who will self-identify. They'll volunteer for that because they see it as value creating for the company and for themselves, and they have leadership instinctively in their makeup. And so you find some of them, and if they don't volunteer, you're going to have to identify them, and you want your HR function, your human resources function, to be able to tell you to identify them and to begin that process, as well as the other functions, communications and strategy and planning and those functions. All of them have to work together. Good growth means sustainable growth. It means growth that you can replicate. So it's not just a one-time spike that you won't replace the next year. It's a steadier, more substantiated, built on a stronger platform kind of growth that you can expect and predict will reoccur next year and the year after and the year after. With respect to the future, essentially it's an infinite kind of growing strategy. The prerequisites for having that kind of growth have to do with sustainability. I mean, your product has to be sustainable. Your technology has to be replicable in terms of being efficient for the market you're serving. Your relationship with your people, whether they be your employees or your community or your national government, your environmental performance, and all those factors that go into the rubric of sustainability has to be compatible with the growth that you're achieving. Because if they're not, the growth will end, because the sustainability factors will prevail. Everything ties back into the culture of the company.